Welcome to this Simple Solutions FM video tutorial. This is step 1 of the process of importing an AutoCAD drawing into Evolve FM. So we'll be talking about tagging the polylines in this tutorial. So let's move on to AutoCAD. In order to bring an AutoCAD drawing into Evolve FM, each space on the AutoCAD drawing needs to have a polyline, a lightweight polyline drawn around its boundary, and each polyline needs to have a space ID located within its boundaries. And this text needs to be single line text, not M text. So before we tag the polylines, it's always best to check them for any possible errors that may occur during the import process. We'll do that by using the Simple FM Tools tool palette and by selecting the FM Audit tab. These are all the audit commands that we'll use to verify that everything looks good for import. So to begin, we want to turn off all layers except for our text ID and the polyline layers. To do that, I use the isolate command up on my ribbon. Click isolate, I select a polyline and my space ID text and hit enter. So all I have visible are my polylines and text entities. And you basically just start at the beginning at the top of the FM Audit panel, first by pushing all of the polylines down to a Z value of 0, polylines and text. I simply click the Select Object tool. You can see in my command line it tells me to select objects. I just window around all the polylines and text entities and press enter. Next is the Audit Space Polyline section. This will check all of our polylines for possible errors before we import it into Evolve. The first is every polyline on the drawing must be a properly closed polyline. So this first audit checks for unclosed polylines. And again, I just click my Audit tool. If an error occurs, the audit report opens and displays the error in the report. You can click on the error and it brings you right to the unclosed polyline. So if we select that polyline and look at our properties, we could see that the value is no here for closed. We could just change that value to yes and AutoCAD will close that polyline. I clear the audit. I like to rerun them again just to make sure they've all been cleared. Next is no text label. This is going to check to make sure that every polyline has a single line text entity within its boundary. So again, I click the Audit tool. The audit report opens, but no text label. I click on the error and it brings me to the polyline with the error. This looks like it's fine. However, if you click the piece of text, we could see that the grip is outside the polyline. So we just want to move that inside. And then we'll click the second error. Same thing. We'll move this from here into the center. And click clear. And I rerun the audit to make sure it's fine. This is a tip. While I'm doing this tutorial, I'm leaving my text at my regular scale, but you may want to select all of your text entities, go to Properties, select Text, and before you run these audits, you can change the text to something very small, like 2 inches. Notice it makes this text really tiny. That's to ensure that they'll fit inside even very small closet type of areas. And then you can run the audits while your text is this small within the polyline, and it helps to reduce those types of errors. But for this purpose of this tutorial, I'll just leave them at regular size. Multiple text labels checks for a polyline that may have more than one room number within its boundaries. Again, I click the error, and we could see that this space apparently had some type of closet or other small area within it. We'll delete that extra space label, click clear highlights, and I do like to rerun just to make sure it cleared. Multiple polylines around text. One piece of text, this will check to see if polylines are drawn on top of another polyline. So again, click the error, and it brings us to the polyline in question. If we move this grip out, we could see that this cube was polylined twice. Now that could result in two space records in Evolve for this one cube. So just to make sure that it doesn't, we delete that extra polyline. And we click clear audits and just double check. And you can press enter here. You don't have to come up and click the OK. Now we move on to auditing the space text. This will check the text within the polyline. First thing we're going to check is to make sure that there's no M text on the drawing. So all of these text entities must be a single line text. So again, we click the audit. Everything looks fine. Duplicate text labels. Every piece of text needs to be unique on this floor plan. No duplicate room numbers. So again, I click my audit tool. I click my duplicate. And in this case, I need to turn on my FM errors. Because I had my polylines in text isolated, my FM error layer was turned off by default. So if using this command you don't see this line connecting the two duplicate pieces of text, make sure that your FM errors layer is turned on. So if we zoom in here, we can see that this looks okay because it's 342 A, B, and C, but this over here is 332 A, B, so this should be 332 C. And again, clear the errors and rerun to make sure that it's processed. And text without a polyline. This checks to make sure that every piece of text has a polyline drawn around it. So we click the audit, click the error, and it brings us to the polyline. Now this looks fine, but if I just move this grip, we could see that it doesn't have a polyline around it. So all we need to do here is to draw a rectangle around this space ID. Clear highlights and just rerun it to make sure it's fixed. So we've done our audit of the polylines in text, and now it's ready to be tagged for Evolve FM. Again, I come to my Simple FM Tools palette. I click the FM Tag tab, and it brings me to my tagging tools. So the top section here, Polyline and Text Processing Layers. This is telling the tool on what layers to look for the Polyline and Text ID. By default, it's all on layers. Notice there's a note here to isolate the layers. So in this case, I've isolated my Polyline and Text entity. So I look here. These are the only two layers that are turned on. So it's going to process all on layers, meaning it's going to process my space and text ID layer. The other option is select on layer. That gives you the option of turning on other layers, say your floor plan layout, along with your polyline and text layer. This also requires your polyline and text to be on the same layer. And then in this box here, you would select the layer that your polyline and text are located on. Best practice is to use the default all on layers as your method for processing. Next section is tag attribute mapping. This is going to map the Polyline tag to a space attribute in Evolve FM. So the space property attribute that's going to be mapped is number. That's the default. Evolve number is another option. Again, best practice is to use the number unless you're familiar with how to remap the layer states or the layer mapping in Evolve FM. If you use the defaults, this is all set up for you in Evolve. So we'll choose the default number, and in the area property, that's the square footage or the area of the polyline, and that's the default attribute we use for that. And then we have the tag type. In this case, it's going to be space. We'll be tagging a space polyline. And then publish the attributed DWF. We'll talk about the published attributed DWF tool in step 2 of this entire process, which will be contained within our step 2 video tutorial. So right now we're going to tag our space polylines. Again, I'm using the default in my first 2 sections. Selecting my tag type of space, I click my tag tool. I just window around all polylines and text entities and press enter. So it says I've tagged 142 space tags. So let's zoom into a couple of these polylines and see what that means. So if I come down to my command line and type xdlist and select a polyline and press enter, this is the tag that the tool put on that polyline. We could see that it's registered to the Evolve application. The Evolve handle is the entity handle of this polyline. So every polyline on this drawing has a unique entity handle that identifies it itself from the others. It's tagged as a space object with a data type of space for Evolve. The number or the room number is picked up from the single line text entity within the polyline boundary. And the square footage or the area of the polyline is picked up from the area property on the polyline itself. So this tag here is what Evolve reads when it brings in the DWF. It'll read this tag and create a space object in Evolve FM for this particular space record. For those of you who are importing the gross square footage polyline, let's turn off our space and our text ID, and we'll turn on our gross square footage polyline. And these layers can be named anything. This is what I happen to call my polyline layers, but it doesn't really matter what your layer names are. So I'm going to turn on the my poly gross square foot layer. Again, I'm going to come to FM Audit. The only 2 audits I need to do here is I want to make sure that this is at flat plane of 0. I also want to make sure that it's closed. And then I'll come back to my FM tag tab. And in this case, I'm going to choose floor for the tag type because I'm tagging the outline of the floor. Click my tag tool, select the polyline, press enter, and it says added 1 space tag. This is a little deceiving because it's really a floor tag, but it reports it as a space tag here. However, again, if we come to the command line and type xdlist, select the object, and press enter, we could see again it has the entity handle of the polyline. It has an object type of space, but the Evolve data type is floor. So Evolve will know it's the gross area of the floor record. It doesn't need a number because it's not a room, it's the outline of the floor, and then the square footage of that polyline. So this represents the gross area of that floor. And that's the process of auditing and tagging a AutoCAD drawing for Evolve FM. So this concludes the tutorial. For more information, please view our corresponding tutorials. And for more information about Simple Solutions FM, please visit our website at www.simplesolutionsfm.com. Thank you for watching.